I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of the Foul Playland. As always, I am Sir Foul Player of Brooklyn, coming at you from the East Coast, where it's now 9:08 Eastern Standard Time. If you're just finding this show now, oh, actually, let me show you some for those of you who are here for the kittens. These are my two stray kittens, one of which just scratched me in the eye. Not this one. This one's the meaner one though. Anyway, there's your kittens. But hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Like always, if you're just finding my channel, thank you for coming through. I'm gonna try to come on as many mornings as I could, unrehearsed, unplanned, just to get it off the chest, if you will. Uh, Conversate as to what has happened yesterday and what may happen today and tomorrow. If you guys don't know, there was a crash in the Ahmedabad area of India, a plane crash, which there were no survivors on the flight. I think there was over 200 people on the flight. Um, Rest in peace to them. I mean, like, it's a terrible tragedy. They're showing some clips right now on CNN. There's the kittens again. But behave, guys. They're showing, I guess, the wreckage. Trump is due to make a executive order signing at about 9, according to the schedule. Let me turn on my do not disturb. Um, if he goes into that, I'll probably cut away and show some of that footage as well. Um, you still had a small scale protest throughout the night. In my hometown, there was an escalation as far as the nature of the protest in New York City. Um, the area in which the protests are happening or where they're getting corralled to is actually an area where you gotta frequent, especially if you're coming from the area in Jersey in which I live. It's basically like the area right after the Holland Tunnel or really close to the Holland Tunnel in downtown Manhattan. But that protest yesterday has riveted up in as far as the amount of protesters that are there and like that they're trying to hinder the police in moving like the vans that are holding detainees that are due to be migrated deported, if you will. There's a facility in downtown Manhattan, and really close by that facility, there's a court, and sometimes they got to drive people from that court to that ICE facility, even though they're both in downtown Manhattan and pretty close to each other. If you have protesters that get in the way of those roads that are used in those maybe 10 city blocks, I mean, like the drive from place to place, it could make a drive that with no traffic takes 5 minutes to and make it into a drive that with a bunch of protesters is nearly impossible. This is or the rowdy kitten Wolf. Wolf man. This is not the one that scratched me earlier, but this is the one that's having more of an issue as far as getting domesticated. See, I love look at this, and then he's cute too on top of that. But if you guys don't know, I help as far as rescuing stray cats and getting trying to get them foster parents or adopted. But this is a Wolfgang, or Wolfie, his name is. I call him Wolfgang Blitz. And he's, look at him, mean. You mean? Mm. You are ugly. You guys see him? I don't know if my comments or if If anybody could comment a middle finger or anything like that, that way I know it's working. It'd be a big help. But yeah, these are my stray kittens. Not they're not the only ones that I have in this house. I have many cats, but I work as far as getting cats fixed. TNR, trap and release, they call it. Um, and these are the two new latest strays that we caught Monday. Yeah, Monday. The one closest to us is Grizzly, and the one that's on the floor is oh no, the one that's closest to us is Wolf, the rude one, and the one that's on the floor is Grizzly. They're brothers. We caught them in a cage outside in my yard. So hopefully they'll get fixed and adopted soon. But going back to the protests that were happening in downtown New York. Again, New York is my hometown, like you know, and I have expertise on the subject. I was a very, very, very much outside New Yorker. Still am. I mean, in a large sense, I still go to art shows in New York. I don't go to concerts and shit like that. I'm not gonna go to clubs in New York. I go to bars, lounges, New York, here and there, restaurants. But and whenever I go to New York, I walk around a lot. As much as I could. As much as my body will tolerate. Now that my back is killing me, but um, I'm very familiar with that area. Is what I want to say, and I gotta drive through that area again every time I come in from Jersey, which is 15 minutes from where this protest is happening, where I live in the border of New York City, New Jersey. Now, if I have any plans of going into New York, I'll be running right into traffic caused by that protest that's happening now in New York City. Yes, there's traffic at many times in New York City. Although when I travel into New York City, usually past 7 p.m., there is no traffic, or far less. Um, at other times, rush hour, there's a ton of traffic. So protesters could get it in the way of hindering, like just the regular life in New York. It's a central artery of traveling from New York City to the state of Jersey and vice versa. And one that if this thing escalates, it's gonna really stop the flow of traffic in that area. But from what it seems yesterday, the protests were getting shut down really early. The police, anytime somebody acted up, and it was usually women at the New York City protest. There was like a lieutenant in a white shirt. Usually, the lieutenants and the sergeants wear white shirts rather than blue shirts in New York City. The police, and they were ordering them away. Like every time somebody acted out, when they caught somebody like throwing a bottle, single that person out, and they would do their best to try to capture them. And it was something that was a lot far more easily controlled because of the large amount of New York Police Department that were there. In addition to the fact that there weren't many protesters there, a lot of the protesters seemed convoluted. There was far more people wearing those Palestinian like headdress looking things, like that you see at a lot of Free Palestine kind of protests and whatnot. There were more of those in New York than Mexican flags. In fact, I don't even recall seeing any Mexican flags at the New York City protest. But I do recall seeing some of those Arab headdress things at the Mexican inspired protests that were happening in Los Angeles throughout the weekend and even into today. But in New York City, the crowds probably reached maybe 1,000. No, no, they weren't 1,000 people. It was probably like 200. It wasn't enough to cover like 2 square blocks. And if there were 200 people there were probably um, just about as many cops, if not more. There were probably 300 cops because I mean, when you gotta, they would account for large police vehicles like vans they were throwing people into, like with the quickness. It has the makings of becoming bigger, but the response in New York City with Mayor Eric Adams, who's already in political hot water as is, but he's his one saving grace politically is aligning himself with Trump, which he has done. If you guys don't know, Eric Adams, the mayor of New York City, was under investigation by the Biden administration, where they had raided and arrested a lot of his aides and put him under investigation during the Biden administration. At the end of the Biden administration, wisely, Eric Adams started making inroads and showing allegiance to Trump because there were only two options at that point. Well, either Kamala Harris would win, which was part of the same party of people that was prosecuting him already in the same Department of Justice, or aligning himself with Trump and hoping that a Trump presidency would gain him better standing with the federal investigations that he was facing under the Biden Department of Justice. Lo and behold, Trump did win, but every candidate that has any chance, particularly Cuomo, is kind of like the front runner in all this. Like for the mayor of New York City vacancy that we that will. Oh no, for the mayor of New York City race that's going to be happening here soon. Um, Eric Adams, in aligning himself with Trump, he's not gonna allow like for no wide scale protest to break out in New York City. You guys got to remember too, even though Trump has seemingly taken a hands off approach for New York, at some point in the very near future, I could totally envision Trump leaning into the fact that he wants to make over New York City, like a crime-ridden, New York City that has fell to crime far more in the last 10 years, especially the last four, when you add the migration problem. But I think that one of Trump's crown jewels, if you will, would be the notion that he has repaired New York City, which he has the capability of doing. New York City, I mean, like, if you guys didn't know, I lived in the 80s New York City, where everything looked burnt down. It was far less populated, but drug sales were out in the open. But um, the suburbs weren't like really bad, and I lived near a suburb during this time too. I'm from Sunset Park, Brooklyn, but I lived near a suburb called not a suburb, a nicer New York City neighborhood called Bay Ridge. And Bay Ridge was fairly decent. It's a large Irish, Italian neighborhood at that time, and Greeks. But for the most part, it was kosher during the 80s. But every bad neighborhood in New York City in the 80s was burnt down looking. And that included my neighborhood at that time, Sunset Park. Um, During the Giuliani years, and I was not a big Giuliani guy in my youth, but he made an effort into really, regardless of the circumstance or regardless of the reaction, that he was gonna lean into, like trying to. Hey, Lala D, good morning to you. But Giuliani, by hook or by crook, he leaned into attempting to crack down on like New York City quality of life crimes, and it brought a lot of money into Times Square. It cleaned up Times Square basically. Times Square was somewhere where there were peep shows and pornography, and during the Rudy Giuliani administration, so much money poured into Times Square that there was no room to keep these city businesses in that district, and that's kind of like what brought you the glitzy, shiny Times Square that you see today. Even though I used to like the old one too. I mean, I'm somebody who detests pornography, and but I the lawlessness as a young man in the old Times Square, I used to benefit from, I guess. But Trump, under this administration, I could totally envision him holding Eric Adams, the now mayor, who's an independent, once Democrat, called himself the Brooklyn Biden, while he was mayor during his early mayoral run to now aligning him, becoming an independent candidate. Mind you, again, Eric Adams was one of the strongest Democrat politicians in the whole country in the early stages of the Biden presidency. You know, he's a young black mayor, well dressed, not well spoken, but just by having the rep for being the mayor of New York City during peak woke era, like 2021, 2022, I would say. Um, this is the time people are trying to forget in the human lexicon. A lot of people are trying to have a lot of cognitive dissonance during this peak COVID era, the 2022 era. You know, where you couldn't talk politics without people crying, and people were telling you that they didn't want you in their house unless you took stuff in your arms. You know, peak COVID era. But during that time, Mayor Eric Adams was a darling of the liberal left. Um, hey, Lala D, no, I'm sorry. And I do thank you because you're the first comment that came through, and I'm over here bugging, like thinking that I'm not getting comments. So anytime somebody comments, like I don't you know, it's to me it's a miracle because then it lets me know that I'm not like conversating on my own, and that more importantly my chats are working. And I just figured out how to operate YouTube from my phone without having to use the camera. My front facing camera is busted. I'm not gonna replace my phone. I'm too cheap for that. But or the so I only have use of the outside facing camera or nothing at all. And I rather operate nothing at all because I rather do these shows in the morning, and I'm looking busted at this time, especially with the allergies. But thank you, Lala D, for coming through. Lala D is a longtime friend of my show, and they're always welcome. Let me make you a moderator too, like if I and so Eric Adams, should he run for or gain try to run for a re-election, him running as the candidate of Trump would probably be a benefit even in New York City. I know a lot of people are going to say what they say about New York City and their politics, but the elections while Trump is president are not going to operate in the same capacity that they did in 2020, where you have a candidate like Joe Biden who is essentially brain dead, win the presidency, acquire the most votes in the history of any presidential candidate. Those same things that are in play that helped somebody who is brain dead like Biden win in 2020 will probably not be in play throughout the country. Or if they are in play throughout the country, it'd probably be far less while Trump's the president. So it's pretty much in terms of like counting paper or tallies, if you will. Like I don't want to get my channel kibosh because you can't talk about these things on YouTube. But those conditions are going to be far less present. But Eric Adams, in aligning himself with Trump per se, and not allowing these protests to happen, while he's also running against Cuomo, who's his major opposition, the one-time governor of the state of New York. The bad thing that could come for Cuomo in his quest to become the governor of, or the mayor of New York City, is that Trump's Department of Justice could put cases on Cuomo regarding this, how he handled the COVID crisis during the lockdown era. And you're already hearing murmurings of that, about these investigations potentially taking place. How bad is it going to look for that investigation to take place while he's running for against pretty much a Trump candidate? And a Trump candidate doesn't sound like a selling point right now in New York City, but will it be a selling point if these protests take a hold and they get in the way of traffic in a major way? For a lot of people like that try to leave New York City at 2:30, that traffic starts accumulating right in the area in which these protests are happening. If that's a everyday occurrence, and that traffic lasts from 2:30 to about, and starts dying down at about 6:30, where major rush hour, no matter what, like in the best of conditions, you're talking driving maybe 5 miles an hour in the best conditions, like with nothing happening. It's usually made purposely complicated down there, and like the cops usually make traffic worse in the leading into the Holland Tunnel in downtown New York. But protesters could make it far worse. And under the Biden presidency, during the summer of love, during the lockdown era, could protests like that taking root could have popped off, and they would have acted like it's not happening and let it wreck shit for a couple of days during the Trump administration. And and now that Eric Adams is probably trying to do everything in his power to retain good favor with Trump, he's going to do anything in his power not to stop it. However, even if they try to stop protests from gathering in places like New York, they could still cause a lot of harm in terms of like cock blocking traffic wherever they at certain points, if you will, already making bad rush hour traffic into, unmovable obstacles. And so we'll see how that plays out. And there's also protests taking place in Texas. That one looked a little scary because there was a lot of pasty white liberals that were in the protest in Texas, but they were actually armed. And I'm for people. Can you ask questions here? Certainly, you could ask questions, Mr. Pickles. Thank you for commenting. And I'm not used to people commenting at all, so just let me catch up with you guys as well. Adams a Trumper? No, I'm not saying that Adams is an outright Trumper. He didn't run as an outright Trumper, but of any candidate that's running for mayor of New York City, who would be the Trumper amongst them, if not Eric Adams? Eric Adams has the distinction of also running as Democrat darling nationwide. I mean, it's not just limited to New York City, in which Eric Adams, running the biggest city in the whole United States, was darling of the Democratic Party not even 2 years ago, to then being investigated by that same by the biggest vote receiver in the history of presidential elections. Joe Biden had his Department of Justice investigate the Eric Adams administration. This is all recently too. I mean, this is recent news. But I do thank you, Mr. Pickles and Marty Jackson, for commenting too. But any questions? Of course, you could ask questions. Um, Moving on with the Texas demonstrations, the one danger I see is that and I'm totally for people having arming themselves and whatnot, like, protecting their property to the best of their ability. But the people that were at the protest in Texas yesterday, some of them seem to be there, like sort of protecting the overall protest. Like, I guess, like, I don't know. It just seemed as if some of the protesters that like seem to be liberal, pasty white, um, not sunbathed, like those shitty ass prickly mustaches. Like, some of them were armed though. Mask, COVID mask. It seemed as if some of them were armed, and again, like they could be out there armed. I guess, like if it's legal. But the liberal left has a tendency of, blowing the bit, if you will, and overreacting violently, especially in recent history. I mean, like the Los Angeles protests and how they're playing out. Violence did break out for damn near a week, and will likely break out today too. I mean, could you imagine if the protesters in Los Angeles were out there armed with rifles? Similar to like the protesters from Texas. I don't care whether they're out there or not. I mean, I know it's just couldn't be something that we envision in Los Angeles for sure, because Los Angeles has far more radicalized, violent leftist lunatics than somewhere like Texas that has a semblance of justice. You wouldn't see the maybe the Texas protests break out in a real fervor, if you will. The one thing that with the Texas protest where I could see it, turning left, if you will, is that they have a lot of high Mexican population in Texas. And all they need for these protests are useful idiots. I mean, these protests are financed by really bad people, agitators, and they just need an army of useful idiots to show up. So in New York City, the useful idiots are the ones that are more wrapped up into the Free Gaza cause. I'm not saying whether that's a bad cause or not. I'm not taking any sides in that war. Um, Travesties happening in that war in a major way. But they're drawing in New York City upon the more of that crowd, and New York City has a decent sized Arab population as well. But the Arab population in New York City, I have Arab friends in New York City. Most of them they make money and they could give two shits. And you're talking about people that live amongst you know um Jewish people on a day to day, Hasidic Jewish people. I mean, a lot of them don't like the fact of things that are taking place in the Middle East, but by and large, like they're not like politicized, from what I see. More so, they're women, like they wear burqas and they speak good English, and then they get on some woke shit, like acting like men are oppressing them. Like, bitch, your own men are oppressing you. Like, you're acting like white men are oppressing you. You don't deal with white men like rocking a burqa and speaking perfect English in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. But then you talk about how you're oppressed by men throughout. The biggest man oppressing you, rocking your burqa, is probably your fucking pops and your uncle. Like, no white dude is telling you gotta wear a burqa. I'd rather you not wear a burqa. I want to see what you look like. And I'm not speaking against that shit, but you have a radicalized crowd of like women like that are showing up to the New York City protest that seem to be of Arab descent, that are like college educated, and those types when they talk politically in New York City, which are more like a younger crowd of Arab women, like they bring up like being oppressed as one of their principal complaints. I mean, like, but it's not America necessarily oppressing you, like, especially if you're talking about being oppressed by your religion and wearing stuff on your head, unless you want to wear shit in your head, and that's a different argument. But they pull on useless idiots in all of these demonstrations, and Texas has the capability of pulling on a lot of useless idiots just based on the geographics and the fact that there's so many Mexicans there. But again, like, will Trump let a Republican state of Texas, fall to lawlessness? I doubt it. I mean, Texas, in large part, is responsible for this migrant crisis. Um, Texas should have mobilized when it came time to Biden allowing so many people to their state. But Texas should have called their National Guard to the border and said, "We're taking over the border." You know, um, However, they allowed it to happen. The busing of migrants into the country. I mean, I was opposed to it, but if I were the mayor of Texas and I was only left with two choices, I'm not going to keep migrants in Texas. I would have shunned them upon dumb states like New York that deem themselves sanctuary cities and states. But they did allow a lot of people into that state. But now that Trump's president, and he's locked down the border um, at the behest of Trump's wishes, I see a wide scale protest breaking out in the state of Texas, especially for immigrant, like, when it brings up this conversation, which now seemingly everybody's having all at once, in terms of where you stand on, mass migration, in terms of where you stand of should a lot of these people stay here, in terms of how comfortable you feel about people that weren't born here burning the flag. And that's whether you're black, white. There's a lot of people, so-called black people. More, I'll change it. There's a lot of Moorish people who you may call so-called black that are now up in arms, or not, are not up in arms, that are now questioning whether they feel cool with a lot of these Mexicans that are burning the American flag in these Los Angeles protests. There's a lot of people that are Moorish, which you so-called black, who their parents were born here, their grandparents were born here, their great grandparents were born here, their great great grandparents were born here, great great grandparents, and to see people of other nations burning a flag of that they saluted throughout their school years. I mean, whether they don't feel that way about America in the recent years, I mean, they're probably not going to feel too enamored with the fact that people that are clawing into America, in many cases, like the case of New York, moving into already bad hoods and plowing them with far more migrants. Probably the same case that you have in Los Angeles. A lot of these new arrived migrants usually end up in bad areas. They don't go to the suburbs in large part, and they don't go to rich areas. But a lot of these people who are outspoken, hood so-called minorities like myself, who can't be told by liberal whites, like, listen, like, you feeling a certain way about this issue uh, is because you're secretly racist or some shit. Like, that kind of conversation is already getting played out. But now a lot of people in this country are feeling a way about this issue. Just in the last week, a lot of people who may have considered themselves liberal are pivoting away from how they feel about the migrant situation, especially how the Democratic Party positions themselves in that debate, and how liberals want to position themselves in that debate, or how people who just want to get a one-up on Trump want to position themselves in that debate. And people that hate Trump are pro-migrant just because they hate Trump, it seems. That's like pretty much the revelation that's happening. A lot of people that make it seem as if they're usually tied up in a issue when it comes to politics usually emanates solely, in many cases, from how that person feels about Trump. And that's something that we're having to contend with most issues. Like now with the migrant situation, which everybody knows happened these past 4 years. Morons were saying, "Oh, it's not a big deal. Migrants always come into this country. What are you talking about?" But mass migration that happened under Biden, I mean, now we're dealing with the repercussions of it, and you have a rowdy group of people that are here saying that they belong here. Some of them, as far as what you get from the Mexican president recently, I think her name is Scheinbaum. She's of Jewish descent. She actually won the presidency. I think last year. She's stoking up the racial fires and saying the that she stands in solidarity with these protesters, and she's convoluting the issue, bringing up the fact that these Southern American states of the United States actually are part of Mexico. Um, so, I mean, what's that going to do to Mexicans in this country that probably already hate Trump and are getting out and protesting? Like, they're going to run with what some of the statements that you see in these LA protests of people saying that this is that the state of California is actually Mexican land. I don't think it's Mexican land, and I mean, I've only visited California a couple times, but beautiful state. But California is part of the American lexicon, like, a ton more than I'd ever consider it Mexican or, you know, the yes, California has a large Mexican influence. Much love to, my Latin brothers throughout the world. Um, but in terms of that debate, nah, the that's American land that I live at, and it's the same land that our parents lived in most cases, our grandparents lived in. We're the illest Americans going right now. Us Americans that are alive today are gonna have to be the illest Americans in the history of this nation because we're facing a world of shit to come, if you will. But I can't have, or I don't think it's a comforting feeling for many Americans living in the political climate where some people think that this is a land that belongs to another country, especially when some Jewish lady that runs Mexico is stoking up that kind of talk like here in America. I mean that, like, like I said, the president of Mexico happens to be not only a woman but also a Jewish woman. So she's not of Mexican descent, and she's stirring up Mexicans in America and in Mexico on this political issue. Let me read some of these comments. Willie Slopjar, thank you for coming through. Let me say your names. Best bus was to Martha's Vineyard. They deported them in one day under Biden. Yeah, that's true. The liberals are NIMBYist, NIMBY, not in my backyard. And in the case of Martha's Vineyard, when those migrants were bussed over to Martha's Vineyard, they deported them right back to where they came from in one day. 99% of the country is pissed, and that's a green substance saying 99% of the country is pissed and not at Trump. That's probably true. Things are, no matter what, highly pressurized at the moment. Just feels that way, honestly. I was talking to my wife about that. We're sick of you people rioting. I don't know who you people are. Trump 2026. And that's Willie Slopjar. Cool name. A green substance says we're fatigued. We're done with the legals and the crying racism. Just get your shit together and stop watching the news. Trump derangement syndrome is real. Trump derangement syndrome is real. Um, Racism does exist, but if you feel as if racism is the biggest thing keeping you down, I mean, there's probably other things that are keeping you from moving ahead than racism. And I was one of these people that subscribed to the notion during the stop and frisk era as a New Yorker, in my 30s at that point too. I didn't feel cool with the fact that stop and frisk was implemented. Um, and that became my central issue. But during that whole time, I was didn't probably wasn't stopped and frisked probably that whole time in New York. Probably once, but I usually run around and do. I sometimes do sketchy stuff in during my time in New York. And that day was one of them. But other than that, though, it wasn't like it was no military shit that I was living under, and I was highly liberalized at that point, bitching about stop and frisk and how it's happening to my people. But at the end of the day, I'm like wasting more time bitching about that than being actually affected by anybody frisking me because it really wasn't happening. It wasn't happening at all, honestly. Lala D, thank you for coming back. Um, Trump 2028 from Sir Yes. Yes, Cali is so beautiful. Yeah, it's gorgeous, honestly. How do Latinos feel about blacks not riding with them? I'm speaking, that's Omac Glory. That's a wonderful question. Speaking as a representative of the Puerto Ricans, if you will. Identity politics is highly at play in this country, and you asked a fantastic question. And I'm speaking from the Latino perspective. Um, I'm a Latino when it comes to the issue, and I think most Puerto Ricans feel this way in terms of the LA rioting. And again, there's a lot of liberalized highly liberalized Puerto Ricans, especially our women. but most Puerto Ricans probably are not aligning themselves with the riots or rioters that are happening in New York City. I mean, where you have a high Puerto Rican community, they're not going out to these riots that were happening last night. Um, for In terms of these protests, it was mostly liberal whites and Arab women and shit libs, and there weren't many there. It was probably like 200. Will that increase? Probably, but will you'll see a high concentration of Puerto Ricans attending these demonstrations? I don't think so. I mean, we just had the Puerto Rican parades happen this past weekend here in the New York City area. So if there was any time to be hyper Puerto Ricanized, it was this past weekend. And on the heels of this past weekend, when these protests did come to New York City last night, wasn't a high concentration of Puerto Ricans. So I'm pretty sure that black people probably feel the same way, if not more. Like they're not rocking with this shit. Like they like most black people in their heart of hearts probably don't want a large scale migration wave of strictly men to come into their country. And I think most Americans feel that way. I mean, it's basically whether you feel as if you're American or you're not. I mean, it's this debate is like as far as not against you, oh Matt Glory, but as far as like the debate that we all have to have internally moving forward is what do you consider yourself? I mean, like even if you, I mean, or where do you live? Like, are you do is the land that you live in yours? Basically, I mean, if you want to say like fuck this land, I mean, like you live here, like, I mean, you could buy up any portion of this land, like, should you come up on the money? Are you telling yourself you're never gonna come up on the money? You just can't buy shit, you know. But most Americans are coming into the perspective of yes, there's many things I don't like about America, but I could be a lot worse off elsewhere, and I don't want it torn asunder. Like my kids do have to live here, um, but I don't like. I think only the most hyper liberalized Latinos, OMAC glory, would feel anyway about somebody of another ethnicity not attending these riots with them. If that answers the question. But thank you for coming through, OMAC glory. I wish I could show these comments. We just won it in war. Honey Gang, Kentucky, Canada. Cool name. I don't know what you mean though. We just won it in war. DEI, deport every illegal. Uh, is a cool acronym. Thank you for coming through, Dean Patterson. So we'll see where the how these things will escalate. Oh, actually, I wanted to talk about this No Kings demonstration that's going to be happening. Um, it seems as well, and I only found out about it because I had been seeing stuff on Twitter that people were saying that it looked like something that was financed by outside entities, agitators, if you will, like, or it seemed like a coordinated plan to start a protest throughout the weekend. I think it's happening on the 14th or something. And I don't want to give this any gas, but the like as far as trying to get people to show up to these protests, because it seems like it's like coordinated protests that are happening all over the country. Oh, Cali, we won in a war. You're actually right. Um, the Mexicans have no claim to Cali. Mexico wasn't even a country for that long, in essence. But in terms of these No Kings protests that are happening, I first heard about them on Twitter, and I didn't think nothing of it. I mean, I just thought it was some liberal shit that they're trying to pop off. But then yesterday, my lady got a text message from somebody with like it was like a white woman on a video, um, pretty much promoting like anti-Trump stuff and saying that these No Kings protests are going to be happening. And there was like a cat in the background of the video. It just seemed very woman like or liberal woman trying to draw on the drawstrings of what they probably hope was a liberal woman receiving a text. And it seemed as if it was like grassroots. It wasn't like, a text from Kamala Harris or some shit. It just seemed like some random woman making it seem like it was a grassroots effort to have these in that she received the text in the first place. These grassroots mm, that these grassroots protests were going to be happening throughout the country. I think that it's an effort to get a bunch of useful idiots gathered in what seems like organic protest against the God knows what. I don't know what they're like against Trump. It seems like they're trying to imply that Trump is making himself a king. But uh, there's also a parade that Trump is doing on that same day in Washington D.C. It's actually a parade that coincides with the date of his birthday, happening on the same day as this No Kings demonstration. DC, it seems that it's going to be a parade for the 50th anniversary of the U.S. Army, and um, I'm pretty sure that that No Kings protest is in part going to have some sort of representation in hyper liberalized Washington D.C., one of the most liberal ship pools in the whole United States. Um, so I'm hoping that the two things. I mean, I have questions regarding that military parade and why it's happening. I mean, it seems cool. I like stuff like that. I mean, like I, not that I would attend necessarily, but I remember like seeing like people in other countries rolling out like military equipment and all that shit, and I used to like that stuff. Um, so it's kind of cool that it's happening in America. That these hyper demonstrations like No Kings, in addition to these protests that are already taking place, try maybe stoking up somebody at the military parade, or who knows? I don't know. You can never tell. Like, I mean, everything's so confusing now. The capability for somebody stupid doing something always days, especially how hyper polarized people are. But it's just something to keep an eye out for. There's a goddamn fly in this house. It's just something to keep watch for. I'm gonna try to kill this bastard while I let me show you guys the Kittens too. Bruce Gas, peace. Thank you for coming through. 250th anniversary of the Army Parade. It's Trump's birthday, and Bruce Gas, longtime subscriber. If you guys please subscribe to him, Bruce Gas Box 2000 more. It's Trump's birthday party. He's gonna stroke his ego. Yeah, it could be. I mean, I'm pretty sure tongue in cheek. He is doing it because it did correlate with the birthday. But again, I used to think it was cool when other countries did it, and I happen to think that I live in the illest country in the world. I live in the illest land that exists right now in the whole planet. And if we have a chance to do something in that capacity, as far as showing out our military equipment on display, I think it's good spirit decor, like for it to go down, like to see how good America could do it. Because I don't remember seeing it in my lifetime, like a military rollout. So what the hell? It probably cost a couple $1 million to put it all together, but this country needs a few good look moments, and I think that would be a true piece of Americana. And I mean, much love to the U.S. Army too on their 250th birthday. Yeah, $50 million down the drain. It's not that big of a cost though. And if we get some good scenery out of it, at the end of it, it might be worth it. might be some scenery that we'll remember for all time. June 14th, the anniversary of the adoption of the Stars and Stripes as the official U.S. flag in 1777. I didn't know that. That's cool too, though. But yeah, I'm not gonna be locked into the TV like watching it unless like the Mets aren't playing, or if I'm not in my house. I mean, or if I'm even in my house that day, which I probably won't be. But if you guys don't have shit to see, I mean, I'm just mentioning it more in the sense that with these activities that are taking place in protest of seemingly Trump, just something to watch out for. Hopefully, nothing bad happens. I don't want bad things to like even in these riots. I mean, like yeah, politically it may look liberals look bad, but I don't need liberals to look bad to give relevance to what I say. Like liberals make themselves look bad by running out dudes in beards, like and having dancing in front of kids, like while they're wearing ladies' dresses. You know, they do that on their own. But I don't need liberals tearing shit up in order for me to prove a point. I hate like riots. I really can't stand rioting. Um, Not that I'm scared of like oh like yeah I'm up in arms about rioting, but you know fixing shit like takes time and like while things get fixed. I mean like you know things look crappy, and I rather Los Angeles, New York City, Washington D.C., all these great cities of this country look their best. Yes, it is. They already got a budget for the roads. It's gonna destroy 50 million in this economy. No excuse. Yeah, it's a drop in the bucket though in this economy. That's a pork in some bill that they throw that they'll throw away anyway. And but again, there was a speech that Trump gave in front of the U.S. troops at Fort Bragg. It was a couple of days ago, but a funny moment in it is that which I don't remember him doing the YMCA dance while he's been president because it's not presidential looking. Honestly, you know, a president really shouldn't be strutting his stuff in most cases. But I thought it was extra gangster that he did it in front of the troops in Fort Bragg, in front of the 82nd, and some of the illest troops in this world has ever seen are situated in Fort Bragg. And if there was any time in which, again, I don't agree with him strutting his stuff and dancing, but if there was any time for him to do it, it was for the troops who are out there bored uh, in any speech, they're gonna be bored. I mean, these are young men. But for him to finish the festivities off with the dance for the troops loved it. They were cheering, and it's gives they haven't had a commander in chief. When you think of Barack Obama, he was nobody the troops are up in arms about, or the Bush era. I mean, seemingly, I mean, like this is the president that's best well received by like the veteran community and the military community throughout. You know, like you rather at the end of the day, regardless of where your politics lies, you sure as the fuck don't want like somebody like a Biden in control of the defenses of this country and the operation of the country throughout. But I'll be candid when I say like thus far, like throughout my life, and I've been politically in tune like since I was a young kid. It seems as if Trump not only has been the best president in my lifetime, but the potential to be one of the greatest presidents. That's just me saying it. I'm not a MAGA pusher or like a Trump fanboy. Again, I was hyper liberal maybe 10 years ago. You know, I had more liberal perspectives than most liberals 10 years ago. Or I would say 12 years ago. I don't want to lie on myself. But I've been politically in tune since the 90s. I never watched. I barely watched shows that like every show I watched either were funny shows or had to do with politics. Even as a young person. But I'm telling you, as a candid observer, I don't have no stake in the game besides wanting Americans to do well. But it seems as if this president has a chance of being one of the best, and who knows, maybe potentially the best. But um, I'll advise you, as the candid listener, to do keep your head on a swivel. Like, don't be fooled by anything. The mainstream media is all a lie, and it's falling apart in front of you in real time. There's more real news on YouTube than there is on the mainstream media, and that's not just me. Like, go look for it. It's up to you whether you're deceived by something or not, and it's up to you to find out like the truth on your own time. But I'll be here to shoot the crap with you guys as much as I could. We'll navigate it together. I know things are tough, but things are definitely feeling highly pressurized. But with pressure, good things could come. I mean, things can't get much worse than what they are now, honestly. But and I know things are extremely tough. But I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I may come back on here later on. We'll see. Um, if there's a bit of news. Let me let you guys say goodbye to the kittens before I leave. Hold on. These little soldiers down here. This is the rude one again, Wolfman. Wolfie. And I just got a comment. Shout out to ICE. Yeah, shout out to the ICE officers that are out there risking their lives in the face of hyper liberalized goons that are hindering their operations. That's one of the other cats we saved before. To She don't like these kittens though. Say hi, Wolf. Say hi, Wolf. He's a dick. He's a big time dick. This is the worst stray kitten that we ever had, as far as like attitude goes. He's being somewhat nice, but every time he reacts to something, he's like hissing. See, but now he's being so sweet. Cause he's cute, buddy. Stop being a jerk. Look at this little angel. Hmm? How could somebody dump a little kitten? Look how cute. Look at how could you guys say God doesn't exist when you have little kittens? Answer me. Yeah, he's really cute though. His brother was supposed to get adopted. Where the hell did he go? Oh yeah, Grizzly. He's cute though. But he's more calm. This little bastard scratched me though right before I started this stream. He was supposed to get adopted yesterday, but the I didn't want my lady to be sad, like, because it was like too quick to give him up. We just got these dudes a couple days ago. Like, we just captured them in the backyard, but in about a week he'll get adopted. But it's been harder and harder to find adoptive parents for kittens. Mm. And look at his paws. Hold on. Come here. Look how big his paws are. This little grizzly bear. Sorry. But it's been harder to find adoptive parents for kids because everybody's broke. So I've been stuck like the past couple times. Like I've been getting stuck with them because times are tough. Times are tough, and people don't have money to afford adopting rescue animals. But let me let you guys go. I hope you guys 36 trillion. We need cuts big time. Yeah, we certainly do. The economic system, I believe, is going to crash regardless. I expected that it would crash under the Biden administration, but Seemingly, it seems as though Trump, with the tariffs, trying to circumvent or cut down on debt by force, basically by injecting tariff money into the debt, which frankly I think might work. I mean, like yesterday, it was uh, told that we were going to be tariffing China at 55%. Sorry. And they were going to be taxing us at 10%. If you guys don't know, China doesn't have an economy without the US. China can't sell shit to, like everything that you buy, like all that crap that you buy, like from Amazon, like comes from China. But they don't have a market for that crap anywhere but the US. Still, they tax us like when we try to do business there, which we don't do a lot of business in China. China does all their business for the most part in the US. We're their only market. So now we're tariffing them 55% on the business that they do, which is pretty much 100% based out of the US. I mean, that's 55% of that we were getting pretty much zero on. Now we're getting a ton. We're getting pretty much all the juice from their economy injected into our economy. I mean, they could not buy squat from the US and we'll be good. I mean, we grow all our food. We could grow all our food just in California. So people aren't telling you about the US. Like the but any like when a lot of these tariffs were first coming up and people were trying to make a point against Trump, I wasn't saying shit because I know how the economy works, and people would bring up like stuff that we were gonna get taxed on. Oh well, they're not gonna buy our, and they really couldn't come up with anything big. Like they would say, oh, like so who are you gonna get? Like where are you gonna get your next iPhone? Listen, I don't have an iPhone. I have a piece of shit Galaxy like 8 from 2018. Like I don't need an iPhone, and you don't either. But like when people were bringing up things as to what um, the repercussions of tariffs are going to be, I could tell that people were talking out of their ass that they don't know what they're talking about because the stuff that we could be penalized on, I mean, like food that we export on, I mean, so we won't sell our food. We keep it in house. Big deal. But China selling their crap to us, we don't need like a lot of that crap. And I mean, pretty soon we're gonna be leading a country in which these small, crappy things like that we get from elsewhere could be made here. And this was happening recently. My mom worked in a factory in Brooklyn, New York City, in Sunset Park, 1 block from my house. And it was a factory that's smaller than my living room. All they made was two crappy shirts at a time, and that factory would then sell it to retailers. The guy who ran that factory, his name was Benny. He was a regular Puerto Rican dude, and I think they would have like 8 workers tops at a time. But he was a regular ass dude. I mean, like, and he didn't live in Sunset Park. He lived elsewhere. I mean, like, so he basically accomplished his little bit of the American dream in probably what was back then a place that cost him to rent $300, and paying workers, $5 an hour, like, and probably generating for himself, 5,000 a week, 6,000 a week. That's fantastic. I mean, like, you anybody could come up like that. I mean, like that guy, the Puerto Rican Benny that ran that factory, um, he ain't come from shit, it seemed. But the opportunity for you to come up lies largely in this country. Europe is a is the home of mass migration and taxation. I don't want to live in a society where I'm constantly thinking about who's been done wrong. I've been done wrong in many instances by society. Am I gonna relish on that like some broad? Hells no, man. Like how am I gonna live? How should you live your life? Like telling your kids like that they should be in fear at all times and that they're being done dirty like by the system. If the system's doing you dirty and it's still in place, like ain't no bit of rioting and protesting is gonna change the system. I mean, like you could either do well in the system or get eaten by the system. Your choices are only two, you know. But I want to get back into a country like where women could stay at home and not have to deal with men harassing them. I mean, I think that women, raising families, raising these little knucklehead kids. I mean, these kids are knuckleheads because their moms are usually out working full-time jobs. Nobody's at home. Like, I'd rather people aspire like to just own a little piece of what was normal in the 80s, a house and a family, like, falling in love with somebody, like, and buying yourself a piece of real estate in the future and a car, those are easily things that you can accomplish in spite of any system. And they're more accomplishable here than in Europe. In Europe, you'll be an asshole on a bicycle living in a one bedroom, everything crammed into one room, like with a bunch of roommates. And that's what America is becoming if we don't stop things in their tracks right now. Like, I mean, like, America is becoming a place in which you keep adding people here, and it's going to become a question of, oh, well, should you have a house that big, or should you have an apartment of this size when there are other people living in the street? You're a mean person for not allowing people to live in your apartment while people freeze. And it's going to be liberal whites telling you, like, that you're greedy for having any sort of decent existence while they live in nice houses in gentrified communities. They have their little vacation homes that they could run to, but the biggest thing that they get up to is stirring up so-called minorities, to be frank, and not really dealing with them on a day-to-day. But for the every man, like in this society, I mean, like, and every woman, I mean, we really gotta pivot ourselves to trying to make things work and not trying to find anonymity at every turn. Nobody's really keeping, there's always going to be somebody who you could rationalize is keeping you down by not aligning themselves with you in some capacity. That stuff isn't important. What's important is what you could do for yourself. Right? But with that, I mean, go out there and get it. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I'll see if I come back later. If I don't, you guys have a wonderful one. Peace.